the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Welton, joined by Sergeant Welton. Ken, how are you?
I'm good.
You know, something that I hear a lot of people say, and it's the most humbling thing to be able to create a space to where somebody can say this, is I have never told anybody that before, or it was really easy for me to tell you that. And I think that a lot of the times, especially when you're a first responder, you can have so much pressure of being the strong one all of the time.
Yeah, I think we don't have someone that we feel open to talking to all the time, and that's where I think we fail each other, because you come off with a sense of judgment. You come off with this sense of, oh, they're going to think less than of me, or they're going to think this different way of me, because we build this dynamic between each other, especially in the first responder realm, of where we're buddies. This is what we're here for, instead of being able to lean on one another in our time of need.
And this could be in the dynamics of you with your family as well. I know that for me personally, I've had to step back a lot when I started to recognize some things that were incongruent when it came to how much of myself I was giving, and then how much other people were just kind of frivolously doing the things that they wanted to do instead of putting forth the effort for the things that I thought that they couldn't do. And so this happens at work and at home. And I think that what happens is that you could be the one that everybody always relies on, or the one that always holds it together, the one that doesn't fall apart no matter what you've seen or what you've carried. But when you wear a uniform, especially, that uniform actually comes off.
I think, and it's so funny to think about too, is when you have those relationships, those dynamics, not only on duty but off duty, is when you're that bridge to where everyone leans on you all the time, and you're that glue holding everything together. When you separate yourself from that dynamic, you're still the glue that holds everything together, just in a different way, because they use you to talk about so-and-so would have done this.
And sometimes this could come down to boundaries. I know an officer that he tells me the craziest stories about, like, oh, my friend, my brother, my uncle, my sister called me instead of calling the cops.
That's something, because we created that dynamic for ourselves of being there because we want to be there to support one another. We want to be there to be that person that they can rely on. But in our reality is, what are you doing to take care of yourself instead of always taking care of others?
What I wanted to talk about today was how we can explore that strength can become pressure, and why asking for help feels so hard, and how constant self-reliance quietly just leads to this burnout, isolation, or even emotional exhaustion, because I see that all of the time. And the psychological concept we're going to talk about is called strength identity trap. And this happens when your sense of worth becomes so tied to being dependable and resilient and unshakable that it literally leaves no room for you to be vulnerable or for you to be able to rest.
Yeah, and I think we start building this perception of who we are as an individual, and people, when they lean on you all the time, when you have that day where you're just like, I'm not feeling up to this today, and you just want to take 5 minutes, you want to take some time just to, hey, I'm going to go veg out somewhere and just be with my own self, just because you're tired. And when you do that and you kind of have that withdrawal, everyone looks at you like, oh no, what's wrong? What did I do? And they start thinking that you're mad at them or you did something wrong.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about peer expectations. There have been so many times where you've been so sweet and you go out and you get me flowers, and there's this one spot you like to go to and not a lot of people know about it, and they have the most beautiful flowers. And sometimes you'll tell me stories about, yeah, I took my partner so-and-so with me and then he ended up getting flowers for his wife. And so there are times where peer expectations and performance can rub off in a good way. But I think that in the first responder culture, peer expectations can also kind of lead to some hardships when it comes to you always being the strong one. You might also have things like leadership pressure or crisis-driven environments, fear as being the weak one. I know that is a major one for a lot of people, and then constant responsibility for others.
Yeah, I think when we bear so much pressure onto our own shoulders. You're always trying to strive to be your best, and the difference is you keep doing it time and time again, and people are going to start expecting that of you instead of it being kind of a one-off situation and making people do their job where they're supposed to.
Yeah, totally. And I think that when strength becomes identity, it stops being a resource and it starts to feel like a prison. And there are 5 ways I think that the strong one role takes its toll on you. And the first is that you are the one who could carry everybody else's stress because people unload on you because you seem to be able to handle it all.
Yeah, and I think over time that starts weighing on you more and more, and it's okay. Everything's okay, and people say, "Oh, I can take it on. I can take it on." Well, you can take it on until you're burnt out and you can't do that anymore.
Another thing that I see is that support feels like failure instead of relief, and you don't ask for help until you're already too overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think we keep pushing off our own thoughts and opinions and our own well-being time and time again because we don't want to burden someone else over it, and instead of just being there and saying, "Hey, I actually need some time this time."
In my head right now, I have that Lonely song by Justin Bieber, and it's because it's actually really sad because when you think about it, no one actually checks on the one who always has it together.
That's very true, because people inherently are selfish, and I don't think if you always have this perception that you're okay all the time and you're always pushing that off, you don't have someone that's going to come up to you and say, "Hey, how are you really doing today?"
Yeah, and when that happens, I think you minimize your own pain, and maybe you tell others that maybe they have it worse than you do, is what you might say in your head, and because of that, you just tend to stay silent.
Yeah, and I think that's where we need to start leaning into ourselves even more so, as if instead of just saying, today's a tough day. This is what's going on.
It's so important to check on people because I know that this is something that I have definitely been guilty of, where my outward success hides the internal exhaustion. And that's because I know for me that I stay super functional even when I'm quietly like falling apart or just getting exhausted.
Yeah, and I think that it's so important to be able to, you can put off this perception of the success and of who you are as an individual all the time, but ultimately you don't want to reach that level of burnt outness, and you want to be able to take care of yourself and rest when you feel it's necessary.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways for us to kind of be able to release that pressure without losing respect. And I think the first thing is to redefine strength as sustainability. I had it in my head, like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this first quarter of the year because I have so many things on top of so many other things and a lot of travel and work. And so what I decided to do was to be able to bite-size things down. And even if that means that, like for January, for example, with the Big Beautiful Bill, it is so important for me to make sure that we are literally capitalizing on everything. We made some major purchases with my business and personally for us to be able to make sure that we do that. And so it is such a big project. I do it all by myself, and incorporating that into what I already have, it could feel impossible. And so breaking things down by just doing like 1 hour, at least 5 days a week up until our appointment next month, like doing small things like that to be able to kind of release some of that pressure, but doing it in a way to where it's sustainable. If I went all in and I'm doing, a 16-hour day on top of trying to add on maybe 5 or 8 hours of additional work, it's impossible, right? I don't have enough hours in a day. But if you're able to do things that are actually going to last, then it's going to make it to where you're not going to self-destruct.
Yeah, you want to find that it's that old saying that it's, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, and you figure out what works for you and how you can fit in these new things into your schedule in this time to be able to make those adaptations and changes to be able to get to a point to where you can find that rest.
I think too, like we think that, okay, now everyone's going to know my secret, that I can't handle the entire world on my shoulders. And I think it's important to just practice selective vulnerability. So you don't have to open up to everybody, but just to have somebody safe to be able to open up to is going to help to be able to relieve a lot of that pressure.
Yeah, being able to have someone that you can lean on for support, whether it's just venting to, whether it's actually asking for help to, address to alleviate some of your time pressures or whatever it may be, it's important to have those people in your life.
Yeah, I think being the strong one helps to keep everybody else afloat, but it shouldn't cost you your own health or your relationships or your peace. And it's so important to ask for support or help early and not when you're at that breaking point, because I think that prevention beats crisis every single time. And there are ways to make sure that you can do it in a sustainable way. I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.